I'm not anyone important. I'm just a soul trying to make sense of life. I'm a child of God just like you. I don't speak your language, but I'll do my best to offer you a meaningful experience. My name is Mihai. I'm a son of post-communist Moldova, born in 1990, and I've been living in Italy since 2001. I consider myself a son of Europe and a citizen of the world. I was baptized in the Orthodox Church with holy water, and I was also baptized by flames at the age of 33. While I was burning, I jumped off a balcony from a considerable height to save myself, hitting my head directly on the asphalt. If you think it was a terrible accident, it surely was, according to common logic. But from my point of view, it was the best experience that could have happened to me. That experience allowed me to completely change my perspective on life. And no, this is not one of those typical sad dramatic stories. Below I'll link the video if you want to watch it. I'm not posting it directly on YouTube because I believe it might violate some of the rules. What you'll see is not exactly what I lived, but with time, I'll tell you more and more. But I'm not here just to tell you this adventure. I'm not here for fame or glory because my ego has evolved with time, with life, and most of all with suffering. In this introduction, I just want to say that we are surrounded by a global spiritual crisis that is devastating both life itself and this planet. Yes, you heard me right, a spiritual crisis. You probably feel it too, that we as a species can do better, and only by uniting can we leave behind a better future and a positive memory of ourselves for the next generations. We must break the chains that bind us, and especially in the mind, and stop recycling the same old story over and over again. What we need is a revolution, but not a violent one. I'm talking about a spiritual revolution, a revolution that will help us rise and feel the warmth of Mother Earth, that will fill our hearts with love and hope, that will make us look up to the stars and project our thoughts toward a better future. And behind us, there will be God, or the Creator, if you prefer to think in terms of simulation, or the Greek gods, the Norse gods, the ancient gods of Asia or Egypt, or the primordial forces of the universe, or maybe all of them together. I believe that if you trust in a higher force, that force will give you strength in return and help you understand life more deeply. In the end, it's a fair exchange, one of the universal laws. One of the main goals of this channel is to help you understand that we already have everything we need to progress as a species and to ensure a better future for ourselves and for all those who will come after us. I'll try to explain my idea, video after video, and what I want to tell you is that the truth, that's what I call it, is accessible to everyone regardless of whether you believe in a god or not. Many Eastern philosophies, in fact, are not considered religions, and over the last few decades these philosophies have gained ground in Western countries simply because it was inevitable, and also because newer generations were ready to receive this new energy. Everyone has the right to follow what their heart tells them. Only in this way can a person find their own path. Even the Bible says that the Lord's ways are infinite. There's no single universal path that fits everyone, because each one of us is unique, just like our journey through life. The world is beautiful, precisely because it's diverse. Based on my early experience with spirituality, I realized that religious belief must be a free choice, never an obligation, and everyone has their own timing, like in every aspect of life. There's no universal perfect moment, like it comes when it needs to come. I, for example, found my Orthodox Christian faith thanks to Eastern principles, Hindu ones at first. In the end, it doesn't matter what you believe in or don't believe in. What matters is aiming toward goodness, or the truth, as I call it, while respecting the rules, and those rules have always been the same. You can even find comfort in the rules of the Japanese Bushido, the ancient code of the samurai. No one should ever be forced to believe in something that doesn't belong to them. That's ethically wrong. While I was filming the video you're watching, I noticed a small monument. Being the curious person I am, I discovered an interesting dedication. The historic Miramare Castle hosted the headquarters of the US Army contingent. They secured the borders and restored freedom and democracy. Thinking about that monument, I looked up some facts about the territories that joined the United States, and I found out that the 50th and last territory to join the USA was Hawaii in 1959, with over 90% of the vote in favor. So there it was, the perfect connection to an important topic, current European politics. I'll talk about many different subjects on this channel. Don't worry if politics or spirituality aren't really your thing, though I do believe a bit of general knowledge never hurts. That Hawaiian popular vote was kind of like the 2014 referendum in Crimea, except in Ukraine you had two choices: vote yes or vote for the Kalashnikov. There was no way to refuse. In fact, nearly 100% of voters chose to join Russia. Oh, and the ballot boxes were transparent, so your vote was visible to the little green men holding rifles next to you. Let's not forget that back in 1991, during the independence referendum after the fall of the Soviet Union, 54% of Crimean residents voted to remain with Ukraine instead of Russia. They understood they'd be better off under Ukraine. But hey, what a success story for Russia in just a few years. Looks like Crimea got tired of Ukraine's tyranny. Of course, I'm being sarcastic. Many years ago, before the Kremlin unjustly and illegally occupied parts of Ukraine, I was going through a dark period, my first real existential crisis. And so, being fragile and unaware, I let myself be embraced by the pro-Russian troll factory. And I started to believe that these good people were right, that post-communist Russia was somehow the best future for us Europeans. Later on, I became pro-American, mainly to take a stand against that darkness that was once again pushing toward my homeland, Moldova. But when the war in Ukraine began, I returned to my natural roots. I became a Europeanist again, but with a more evolved vision. Because now I want to propose an alternative version of politics. I like the idea of embracing the good from every great state, empire, or foreign power, while of course discarding the harmful side. And in this latest chapter of my life, I truly believe that we Europeans are standing at a turning point. And if this idea means something to you too, follow me to hear what I have to say. What do you have to lose in the end? I promise not to waste your time, because time is the most precious resource we have. Besides, we all spend time watching nonsense online anyway, so I'm really not asking for much. And if you're not European, it doesn't matter, because these ideas can be applied wherever you live. I'll consider good qualities and values from other cultures too, especially spiritual ones, because I firmly believe this is the true future of humanity. I see myself as someone who has developed a certain level of awareness, and that awareness allows me to dig deep into the real issues. I'll try to be humble and respectful, and yes, I might make some mistakes, but they'll be in good faith. After all, we're only human. Do you truly want to understand communism? The next video will be the beginning. From my point of view, communism is, in a certain sense, similar to the underworld of the Greek god Pluto, especially for us Eastern Europeans. It has a powerful influence on us, but without awareness, we can't perceive it or understand it. But the key difference between the two is this. Communism has a completely dark soul and uses every tool available to destroy the human spirit. Pluto, on the other hand, punishes, but also helps you rise again from the ashes like the myth of the phoenix. And the sad truth is, post-Soviet Russia never wanted to rise like the phoenix. Instead, it put on a cheap mask to confuse people, with fake noble ideals, with fake freedom, and continued to destroy, piece by piece, what was left of the human soul. It crushed human dignity day after day, the very dignity that communism had already shattered, but never finished off. You've read books, you've seen documentaries, you've heard stories, maybe you've even lived through it yourself, but communism isn't something you just study, nor something you only experience firsthand. You can also absorb it in silence, from a land that still carries its wounds today. I was born when this system had just collapsed, and leaving the homeland was only the beginning of the cycle. Entire generations grew up with their country far away, and I'm one of those young souls ripped away from the reality that should have protected us and made us happy. And if you're here watching this video now, thank you. Maybe you want to understand more, or maybe you're watching because you already understand, because you've suffered, and you don't want history to repeat itself. So let's make a small pact. I ask you to start this journey with me, to challenge this broken system, and history itself. But not just to challenge it, to make it better. Because what I'm about to tell you doesn't come from a textbook. It comes from a soul that has chosen not to accept lies or mediocrity. Thank you for your time.